Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Lacey of drlacey.com, and I am so excited that you are here today for this late night broadcast of the Empowerment Climb. As you know, it's another chance for us to get it right, another chance for us to grow and glow together, and another opportunity for us to be empowered. I'm super excited that you would take this time to invest in yourself. So if you're joining me here live on Crowdcast, I'm so excited to have you here. You may also be chiming in via YouTube or on my YouTube channel, or on my Facebook. But regardless as to where you're chiming in from, please take the time now and write down in the comments below where you are logging in from. Are you here in Milwaukee? Are you someplace beyond that? I'd like to know where you are chiming in from. And if you happen to share or happen to continue to the dialogue and the conversation, please use the hashtag Dr. Lacey Live. That's DrLaciLive, as I'd love to continue the conversation with you. And so with that said, I'm excited to get to today's topic, which are 3 steps to lifting the heavy load as leaders through balance. Now, as women, as a reminder, my target audience, the individuals that I primarily work with, are female, current and aspiring leaders. And one of the things that I've noticed in conversations with them is, especially if they are looking to go to, quote, that next level, to level up, however you want to call it, there seems to be a theme that happens, right? As you know, we go to work, we're working super hard, we're trying to do everything we can as the boss or for the boss, and then we hurry up, we rush home, and we begin our second job, right? Regardless if that's second job as wife, second job as mom, maybe both, but we all are trying to figure out, how can I do a better job of balance? If you were to Google work-life balance, it's kind of funny, like things even come up that say it's unrealistic, it doesn't exist, it can never happen, or there are some other things that basically tell you to put your life on the shelf and focus on work, or vice versa. However, as you know, all this month, I am talking to you about vision. And as leaders or aspiring leaders, not only do we have to have work-life balance, but we also have to be able to do so in celebrating and sharing our vision as well. So, if you're curious, here is the shortcut. If you're curious what effective work-life balance looks like, you need to look around your circle. Again, who's in your tribe? Think about the individuals that are in your circle. And if you can find someone who exemplifies the type of work-life balance that you're going for, then that's the person you want to try to connect with. That's the one you want to try to emulate, to follow, right? And if you're looking to finding and sustaining balance, it's really about more so sustaining energy. And if you sustain your energy, results and joy in life follows, and you don't just collapse in bed, right? So I think the first thing we have to do is really think about, how do you define balance? How do you define balance? And I want to be able to give you 3 steps on today for this week's Empowerment Climb that are going to help you to do just that. So first off, balance essentially means finding a way to prioritize the various elements of your life. Finding a way to prioritize the various elements of your life. So think about all the roles that you have within your life, right? And then start to think about, okay, well, how do you prioritize those on a daily basis? How do you prioritize those, at a week at a time, a month at a time? And when you are able to do that, balance, again, it's defined as finding a prioritized way of various elements in your life with a sense of peace and confidence. So when a person has balance, there's peace and confidence that connects to it. You're able to make the right decisions for yourself, your career, the people that matter most in your life. So most times that's going to be your family, your children, your spouse. In other words, it is more than the to-do list. It is more than the to-do list. And that's something I think we really have to keep in mind as we are talking about our topic today, 3 steps for lifting the heavy load as leaders through balance. It's more than the to-do list. Now, when I was growing up, we would make the to-do list every single Saturday before my mom and I would go out and run around town and do what we had to do. We always made that to-do list, right? And so as a part of that to-do list, I remember it would get on my nerves. I'm like, can't we just go? But it helped us to prioritize. So the very first step that you have to consider when it comes to lifting this heavy load through balance is you have to be able to shift your belief system. So shift your belief system, going from work-life balance to work-life effectiveness. So shift your belief system from work-life balance to work-life effectiveness. Remember, we're thinking about all of the different roles that we play in our lives on a daily basis. All of the different roles we play in our lives on a daily basis. And we're thinking about shifting from work-life balance to work-life effectiveness. I want to be able to be effective in all of these different roles. So according to Catalyst, and if you're not familiar with Catalyst, you're going to want to look them up. It's actually a research firm, and their whole focus is on women in business. That's what they study. They study women in business. So if you get a chance, look them up. You might find yourself encouraged and inspired, right? And they use, they're actually the ones who have coined the phrase work-life effectiveness. They're getting away from work-life balance. They're getting away from it, partly because people are so tethered to it, but it's hard to define. And so if I say work-life effectiveness, I'm being effective in my various areas. It actually suggests that I'm striving for a situation where work fits with other aspects of my life. So let me use myself as an example. Every day this week, I have a late night, every single day. Last night, I had to do a presentation for the area school board here. It was supposed to be at 6:30. It did not begin until 8:30. That's when I was called to the docket. I was item number 2, 8:30 at night. By the time the other agenda items, my agenda item, as well as another agenda item I needed to be there for was complete, it was 10 o'clock at night when I was on my way home. Mind you, this was after an entire full day of working in other areas, right? It's a part of being the boss. It's a part of being responsible. It's a part of being the head, the leader, regardless as to where your position is, because I also had staff members with me at this meeting who report to me. So they too had a very long day. And so we have to think about, all right, so how does that fit into my other aspects of life? Well, as you know, typically the empowerment climb is at 6:30 a.m. But by the time I got home at 10 o'clock, made dinner, spoke to my husband, got into bed, it was closer to like 12:30 going on 1 o'clock. So needless to say, so I could be my best self, my most effective self when communicating this information with these dynamic leaders that join us online, I had to make a shift to make this fit into this aspect of my life, to make the empowerment climb shift into this aspect of my life. All right, so step number 1 is literally shifting the belief from work-life balance to work-life effectiveness. So change your belief. Step number 2 is defining success in all categories of your life. And remember, at the top of our time together, I started talking about thinking of all the areas of your life, every aspect that you have of your life, right? So you have to keep in mind and remember that what your areas and the aspects of your life may not be the same as for me or someone else, your colleague around the corner, right? So I'm going to use myself as an example. Not only am I a wife, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit company. I'm the founder and president of Robin's Nest Consulting, of which drlacey.com is an affiliate of. I'm also a first lady because my husband is a pastor. Like that, those are just four roles. I'm a bonus mom to 2 dynamic tweens, right? So all of these aspects, that's just really kind of the top of the heap, right? So if you start thinking about for yourself and being able to think of all the categories in your life, you have to remember that your definition of success for those categories in your life is personal. It's personal. You cannot allow someone else to put the definition of success onto you. You have to determine that for yourself. Remember, it's about work-life effectiveness, not just balance, right? You have to determine that for yourself. It's important to realize that what constitutes success for one person may not constitute success for someone else. My schedule is so full and so busy as an executive director as, you know, I just mentioned, president and founder and CEO of Robinson Consulting, as the first lady, as a bonus mom. If I cook dinner for my family, that's considered a level of success for me. If I can cook dinner 3 times a week for my family, I consider it like, yes, I have had a moment of success. Now, for someone else, they may look at me and be like, oh my gosh, she's a terrible wife. She's, you know, not taking care of her family. Why isn't she doing these things? And they try to put their impression and their guilt onto you, but you don't have to accept that because it's your definition of success. It's not theirs. So for someone else, it may be realistic for them that they can cook dinner for their family 7 days a week, 5 days a week, but that's not what happens in the robin's nest. That's not how it goes down here. And it may be the same for you. That's not how it works in your household because you have to define success for yourself. Realize it may not be the same as how someone else has defined it, and also not put your own biases onto someone else, right? So I might look to someone else and I'm thinking to them, well, you know, your house is a mess. You're not taking care of your family. But as far as I know, they might have a housekeeper that comes in. So we can't make judgments on someone else and we can't accept someone's judgment on us. So again, step number 2 is define success in all categories of your life. Step number 3. Step number 3, think Miss Jackson. Think Miss Jackson. Yes, it's Miss Jackson if you're nasty, Janet Jackson, right? How many of you all remember the big breakout album that Janet had, right? Once upon a time, I was a huge Janet Jackson fan. I know she's out touring again, but how many of you remember her big breakout album? If you remember her big breakout album, what it was called, put it in the comments below. Because this is step number 3. Put it in the comments below. Step number 3 is control. Control. Now, I'm not going to sing. I'm going to spare you all of that. But stress comes when we feel out of control. Stress comes, there you go. Yep, there it is. Stress comes when we feel out of control. Stress comes when we feel out of control. And most times we feel out of control because of the stress that's happening in our lives. So step number 3 is literally for us to tap into our inner Janet Jackson and take control. Now, the big thing that I remember about the Control album and why it was such a breakout album for Janet is she talks about how it was her time and her proclamation to the world that she was taking control of her own life, taking control of her own decisions, her own career, her own destiny, right? And so one way that we achieve that balance, that work-life effectiveness, is we make the decision to put some control markers in place. It needs to be okay if the laundry doesn't get done. If that basket of towels isn't folded, that needs to be all right. If you don't send that email before you leave work and it has to wait till the next day, that needs to be okay. It's your opportunity to take control as to what's happening. I promise you this, 24 hours in the case of most emails at work are not going to make or break you. Unless you have distinct deadlines, like for example, I write a lot of grants and those grants have an 11:59 p.m. deadline, right? In the event of something like that, absolutely, you need to push through. But for most things, it's not going to make a difference. And so you need to be confident enough to say, it's all good. That can wait until another day. It's about being effective where you can be most effective. All right. So let's just kind of do a quick recap. Again, we're talking about 3 steps to maintain or to create work-life balance, 3 steps to lifting the heavy load as leaders through balance. Step number 1 is to have a mindset shift. Step number 2 is to define success for yourself. And step number 3 is to think Miss Jackson, think control. So what does the research say? Well, Christine Reardon, who is the provost and professor of management for the University of Kentucky. I don't know if I have any Wildcat fans out there, but she's from the University of Kentucky. She cites Marissa Mayer, and some of you might recognize that name. She's actually the CEO of Yahoo, who came under a lot of scrutiny from men and women alike when she returned to work soon after the birth of her son. Right? She didn't take the full FMLA or the full amount of time. Riordan encourages a holistic perspective in her research to thinking of one's career as an integral part of your life rather than a separate obligation or a separate activity. In other words, to help eliminate that negative spillover, like, oh, I've worked all day and I have to come home and I still have to do emails, or have to come home and I have to work on, this grant or whatever the case may be. I'm taking these files home for review. Rather than look at it as a negative spillover, I'm at work, let me make these calls to the doctor's office, let me run out for this dentist appointment, let me run to the school for my son's parent-teacher conference. Instead of looking at it as a negative spillover, you actually eliminate it. You eliminate the negative spillover from work into home and vice versa by putting everything in the same container, and you create a coherent narrative. This is what the research says. Now you have to define for yourself if that's something that can work for you. You put everything in your life into one container, and through that one container, you work through your effectiveness in those areas, right? So from the classroom to the boardroom, what's one thing that you could do today to be able to apply what the research says, and to be able to apply that work-life effectiveness, to be able to lift the heavy load? Well, first and foremost is examine the roles that you play in your life. For instance, wife, mother, your individual self, because yes, you do need to have time for yourself where you can just be who you are and not have to answer to honey, mom, whatever the case may be, boss. From there, once you've defined those areas, which I challenged you to do at the top of our time together, from there you need to identify the specific actions that help in feeling a higher level of success and fulfillment. So if you recall, I mentioned about cooking dinner for my family 3 times a week. That's something for me personally is a high level of success. If I can respond to every email that I received in the same day at work, that's a high level of success. And on average, my inbox can range anywhere from 150 to 300 emails at a time, depending on what's happening, right? And yours might be more, it might be less, but like that's an area that I've decided I can define that as success. So once you decide that, you also have to couple that with being fulfilled. It's more than enough. And in sharing your priorities and ideas of success with important stakeholders in your life, so your family members, maybe your board president, whoever that may be, a colleague, you again gain perspective. So if I say to my husband, and I keep going back to this cooking dinner example, but if I say to him, honey, I feel so good that I was able to make you a good dinner tonight, and I feel so great about that. Everyone in the household is full. Everyone's feeling good about life, right? If I can say that and that you're able to gain perspective through that, perspective then leads to work-life effectiveness because my mindset has shifted. It's all about perspective. I feel confident now that I have been able to do X, 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 X. Whatever it might be, because I've defined it for myself. You've defined it for yourself. So here's your point of practice. And our point of practice today comes from Anna Quindlen. And Anna Quindlen is an American author, journalist, and opinion columnist. She actually won a Pulitzer Prize for commentary in 1992. And she says, if your success is not on your own terms, remember we're defining it for ourselves, if your success is not on your own terms, if it looks good to the world, but does not feel good in your heart, it is not success at all. Again, Anna Quindlen says, if your success is not on your own terms, if it looks good to the world, but does not feel good in your heart, it is not success at all. Wow. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, what could I be doing to start to be more successful? Again, make that list. And if you need a little help, as you know, this is a business for me. I had my Gandhi moment. I want to be able to pour into other women. I want to be able to support other women because I see it. I see the burnout when I go to different events, when I go to some of the women's support groups that I'm a part of, women in business support groups that I'm a part of, networking circles that I'm a part of. There's this haze of guilt that's happening there. We don't have to be there. So one thing that you might want to consider, if you recall, I mentioned I have my new book, VIP, An Action Guide for Leaders. VIP, An Action Guide for Leaders. In this book, which you can click the link in the bio, in this book are steps that'll help you to move towards being more balanced in your effectiveness. As you know, I'm hosting a special VIP seminar, absolutely free, this coming Saturday. It's not too late. If you're interested in being a part of it, simply drop me a message. Email me at info@drlacey.com. I'd love to have you come and be my guest. We can walk you through this process to start to help you in your development. I am so excited that you took this time, this evening, this late night exchange with one another to join me to invest in yourself. No one can invest in you like you. No one. No one. Next week's topic will be at our regular time is be prepared to act. As you know, we're talking about vision all month long. So be prepared to act. 5 steps for implementing your vision. If you know another lady who could benefit from the opportunities to connect with this content, please share with her. Please use the hashtag Dr. Lacey Live. And I look so forward to continuing to connect with you. As you know, from process to practice, grab your stilettos and let's go.